longer. Because I never, you know, when I was in high school and stuff, I wasn't sitting that long. So I'm going to make a tall vase now and demo the Steve tool.
How much clay you got there?
This is probably about 4 or 5 pounds. And this wheel, that's one drawback of this wheel. I can't make very big pottery on it, and 5 to 8 pounds is about the limit because it doesn't coast at all. See, if I don't kick it, it just stops.
I wanted to ask you about that. How much weight is on the bottom of that?
Not very much.
Okay.
I'm not. That's just that flywheel is just stacked pieces of plywood.
Okay.
So it's fairly light.
So do you consider adding weight to the bottom of it?
No, I mean I've gotten used to it now. So any of you guys who want to try the wheel out, you're welcome to try it out. I wedged up some extra clay if anybody wants to test out the Denton Bars side treadle.
Now, are all the side treadles on the left for the kick, or is?
I'm not sure. I didn't know that Simon Leach was manufacturing them.
Yeah, it was a small. Because he called Amico looking for a price on wheel heads. And of course he was like, I called Shimpo and wonder what you guys would give me. So of course he had to put that information out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're.
Oh, are you releasing secret information now?
He didn't go with us. So it was, I think, they're $1,200, $1,500, and the craftsmanship is phenomenal. All the wood is finished and water resistant. And it is. I mean, you could just sit it there and put it in a museum. They are so pretty.
I'll have to look those up.
Yeah.
This one cost $50.
I like that.
I love it.
Yeah, I think the kicker for him is the shipping. It's either go get it
well,
or...
this was used. It was at DePaul University, and when Richard Peeler was the ceramic professor there at the time, and they were switching over to electric wheels and selling all their kick wheels, and my parents bought this one for me for Christmas.
Oh, my goodness.
When I was in high school. And it was old when they bought it. It's probably, I got it in probably 1971 or 2. And I bet Richard Peeler bought it back in the 50s.
Wow. I love it.
So, I think this wheel is at least 50 or 60 years old. I'm having a little trouble with this bat. The pins are kind of loose and it's wobbling on me. That's okay. It's a wobbly wheel and it makes wobbly pops. Now I'm using my fingertips to stability. When throwing tall cylinders like this, it's important to make sure the lip is kept compressed, and also I like to keep the bottom dry, so I'm dry out the bottom a lot and compress it with the sponge. The compressing helps prevent cracks that can form. You can have cracks form in the bisque kiln. A pot will look fine in greenware, and it comes out of the bisque kiln with a big crack across the bottom. It's usually because you haven't compressed the bottom enough. It does take a little getting used to this wheel if you're used to throwing on the Brent wheels. Oh, I forget the kick. Your leg is
kick with your right foot.
Your leg is constantly moving, and that throws some people off at first. They have trouble keeping things on center because you got
That's a lot of coordination.
constant movement.
Stabilize your core.
It's a nice mechanism, though. It's really smooth, and sometimes it starts to squeak, and I have to oil it. Usually my wife starts complaining, "Your wheel is squeaking again." She can hear it when
She hears it all the way.
She can hear it when she's out working in the yard. It's like music to me.
It's just talking to you, that's all.
How many pounds clay did you say that was?
I think this was, I didn't weigh it. I think it was probably between 4 and 5.
I know.
So I keep compressing the lip each time I pull it out. And keep that water from pooling in the bottom.
Have you thrown on an electric?
Yeah.
Did you care?
Yeah,
Did you-
I like the
Was
Brent.
it difficult?
No, I mean, that's what we used at the Bloomington Pottery,
Oh, you
the
did?
Brent
Okay.
wheels. Those Brent wheels are really nice. There's one thing, I got a question for the Amoco employee.
He went to lunch.
How come you can buy those Brent wheels discount on the internet, but they charge you full retail when you buy them directly from the factory right here in town?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to talk to my supervisor about that one. No, it's
I know Sherry up there,
Mhm.
and I've asked her that question, and she doesn't like to answer it.
No.
It's called, because we can.
They need a factory outlet store, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like if you bought them right from the factory, you ought to get some kind of break.
Yeah.
On
you can-
shipping, at least.
Well, you
yeah.
can buy them on the internet for
Yeah.
hundreds of dollars
Yeah,
less.
the big ceramic store and all
That's
that.
to protect their dealers, I would imagine. I
That
wouldn't want to
probably
be a
makes
dealer
Yeah, I
if I'm
suppose-
getting
I
undercut.
imagine
Because,
that's what
well,
it
the
is.
Brickyard and Amoco are actually separate on business paper, and Brickyard is a distributor of Amoco. Therefore, if Brickyard starts selling stuff a lot cheaper, it's they're getting the special treatment where other distributors.
Then it'd be like software companies if they
Yeah.
did that.
So there's an underlying stepchildness to Brickyard with other Amoco distributors because of how connected they are with each other.
I was thinking the same thing.
Okay, I think this is about ready.
Just holding his breath.
Yeah, it was all fun. I don't know.
To use the Steve tool, it has to be a little bit thicker than what you'd normally. If I wanted to, I could pull this up a few more times probably and thin it out, but it's probably about 1/4 inch thick now, towards the bottom especially.
So you try to challenge yourself on the height on that?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, what's the tallest one you...
On this wheel, with the, I can't, this is probably about as tall as I can get it, because I can't, with the Brent wheels, you can stand up
Right.
and make them a lot taller, but this is pretty close to the limit, because, once it gets up to the crook of my arm there, I'm about done. So I start out with a Steve tool. A lot of my pots I like to see the wheel, the throw marks in it, but the Steve tool looks best if you get a pretty smooth, start out with a pretty smooth surface. So I just try to smooth it out in the area where I'm going to use the Steve tool.
I love that it's called the Steve tool.
And now I'm ready to use the Steve tool. And just You just kind of hold it whichever way you want. It can be this way or that way.
The only way it could be better is if it was like the bob tool or something.
I didn't catch these.
Ooh.
And then you just kind of support it on the inside with my fingers on the inside. Man, this Steve tool's working really well today. Yesterday it was hanging up. I sprayed it with some WD-40.
Way to go, Steve.
There you go.
WD-40 is our friend.
I could do that.
And you can experiment around with the Steve tool, using it any way you want. I found that I like to get it at an angle like this so that it starts dragging a little bit on the pot and leaves some kind of, instead of just digging in, well, this one's mostly digging in, but maybe I can get it to drag a little bit more and it leaves some kind of streaks. I just go up and down until I think it's good enough. Yeah, Steve did a pretty good job on this tool. It makes some interesting textures. So I've got it going that way. You could leave it just like that, but then I like to. So I've had it at an angle like this. Now I'm going to go back over it at the other angle, so it'll make kind of a cross hatch. Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, yeah, it makes a really cool texture.
Yeah, I thought it was an after the fact fish. A little, yeah. But you find that balance of...
So after you've done the Steve tool, you guys can experiment around with it. I've seen some really interesting results. I usually pretty much leave it like this, but I've seen some interesting results where people will go back and use a rib on the inside then, like one of these ribs. A rib like this on the inside and really push it out, and it just makes it look different. And it's a cool effect. This didn't mess the, sometimes the Steve tool really makes the, I'm going to stretch it out a little bit more with my finger before I bottle it in. But sometimes the Steve tool does make the pot lopsided looking, and after it gets to a leather hard state, you can paddle it back into shape once it's off the wheel. Okay, and then I always like to take a tool like this and just clean up the border. So that it's a real sharp.
Plus it gives you a glaze catch.
Now this is where you got to be careful, because you don't want that texture to get wet now, because that'll mess it up. So if you're going to continue to work on it, I'm going to try to neck it in, but you don't want to it to be dripping wet at this point, dripping down into that texture. hand me that real long sponge on the stick? Right here. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to need that in a minute. Right now, in fact, it'll be a good job.
Did you leave a little extra clay up top knowing you were going to color it in?
Yeah, I left it a little thicker up there. Now, before I color it in anymore, I want to use my my signature look with the Jepson tool here on the top here, just like I did on the bottom. I used a tool to clean up that border. I'm going to use this tool right here to clean up this border of the Steve tool texture. Now here's a way you can use see, I think it looks a little flat right in through here, so I'm going to use this stick to just bulge it out a little bit more right here at the top. And then I finish it off with some kind of fake throw marks at the end.